Hi everyone, welcome back. And this is Denise, and today we are going to talk about typography. Okay, it's actually a very interesting topic, and I love typography. I love typefaces. I love fonts, but because this topic is really broad, where should I begin? Well, let me just begin by sharing with you how important is typography in our design. So, why does typography really matter? Why is it so important in our design? Typography on the web matters because typography matters. Typography is what comes between the author and the reader. So if a text has anything at all significant to say, it needs a typographer's care, which will in turn be repaid by the reader's attention. So we all know that majority of content on the web consists of words. So if our web of words is to be read, and for that reading experience to be good and to be elevated from poor, past satisfactory to great, then it's the details that will count. That's why typography itself is all about the little details adding up to something greater than the sum of the parts. That's why typography really matters in our design. So bear in mind that typography has one plain duty, and that is to convey information in writing. So typography's chief role is to ensure legibility and readability, and most especially is to invite the reader into the text. It's not just for the sake of adding text in your design, but that is to create the ideal conditions for consuming the text, be it immersive reading, scanning for information, or somewhere in between. So the next question is, what should I do next? And where should I begin? What should I do in order to start creating my typographic design? So let me just tell you that before beginning any typographic design, get to know the content, the subject matter, and the tone. So, if you are to do justice to the text and serve your reader well, do your research, okay? Talk to your client, the writers, design researchers, it could be user experience designers or information architects, content strategists, and basically anyone else who could give you a full picture of what you are about to design. So, by doing so, you will know what you will be designing and you will know for whom this design will be created. Okay, so find out who your readers are likely to be. So ask about their demographics, devices, and context, and then when and where might they be reading. So that is it is so important to know this because we cannot just design typographic for, let's say, if the target audience is for younger generation. You can't be using typefaces that are like mostly too formal. It has to be friendly. It has to be something, I would say, really inviting. That would fit to this certain demographic, this certain group of people. So that's why research is the best and the initial thing that you need to do before doing your typographic design. Now, let me tell you this, that typography is not about designing an environment for optimum reading speed, or retention, or even comprehension. But typography is about designing an inviting, comfortable reading experience. So, to do this, we first need to know how people actually read, how our eyes read. So, broadly speaking, a piece of text will serve one of the purposes. So, the first is display text. So, display text is used to grab attention and set a mood. So, it is intended initially for looking at. Next is the reference text. Okay, reference text is used for consulting and providing discrete pieces of information. So, for example, include glossaries, listings, data tables, and search results. And the third one is the linear text. So it is intended for continuous reading, such as books, news articles, and product descriptions. So I would like to focus on the linear text, as this is where the reading experience must be at its most comfortable and inviting. Now, there are different ways that readers approach linear text. So it could be, the first one could be skim read, okay? So they cast their eye over text and reading words and sentences here and there to get a sense of the content. And then there's also scan with purpose. So they jump from section to section looking for a particular piece of information. And finally, they could be engaged in engaged manner, once they find a passage or entire page that they are interested in. So by that, they become immersed in the words. So the immersive flow here is the state that's the ultimate condition for our reader to reach. Okay, so our goal here, our job is to respect both reader and writer by providing the typographic conditions for immersive flow to occur. Okay, so you have to remember that the goal here is to let, okay, the reader be absorbed by the text. So let's move on to setting type to be read. So the first one is design paragraphs line length. Okay, we all know that a paragraph represents an individual unit of thought. So from a typographer's point of view, a paragraph is the shortest passage of text which we should design for immersive reading. So your readers should be able to absorb the writer's thoughts without difficulty or interruption. So how should we do that? Okay, what are the steps? Now you have to choose a comfortable measure. Okay, so what are these comfortable measures? Now, let me tell you that measure is a typographer's term for the length of a line of text. But for web designers, might be described this as the width of a paragraph. Okay, so the first measure is to lean on 6 centuries of typesetting experience. What does that mean? The often quoted ideal length for a line is 66 characters, with a range of 45 to 75 characters, so including spaces. So generally considered satisfactory. Okay, so focus on that. Okay, so the implication is that any book, newspaper, or other reading materials printed in the last few centuries is likely to be set with lines containing between 45 to 75 characters. So that's why lean on 6 centuries of typesetting experiences. Okay, so the next one is you have to set your text for mobile devices. Okay, we're in the modern world, so all modern web designers are taught to think mobile first. So what does that mean? It means that your starting point of any design consideration should be for small screens and less capable devices. So This applies just as much to the typography as it does to any other aspect of web design. So let's take our paragraph and put it in the context of a smartphone, just like here, this one. Okay? So let's move on to designing paragraphs text size. Okay. Now, text size is the second leg of the readability stool. Now, you start with a size suitable for comfortable reading, which could vary with your choice of typeface and the distance of the screen from your reader's eye. There are two things that you have to consider, okay? Use the default font size for paragraphs. So your starting point for paragraph text should be whatever size has been set as the default in the browser, okay? And device manufacturers will have determined an appropriate initial size. So usually it's 16 pixel. So be aware that your reader might have adjusted the default size to better suit their needs. So you should respect your reader's wishes if they have gone to the effort of adjusting the font size, especially the browser default. It will be for a good reason. Okay, I remember that for the mobile device was for a how do you say that, it was for an iPhone, and I changed it to 15 or 14 pixel, and Google considered it. I got a notification, and Google said that my website is not mobile friendly because I used 14 pixels. So it has to be suggested one is 16 pixels. So that's it. It has to be 16 pixel. Now, always remember that it is true that your reader can adjust the size of text within their browsers, but that's no excuse for setting type too small in the first place. So why make them go through the effort of correcting the type size? You know, it is your job as a typographer to set the type correctly, and the default is the size at which browsers were intended to display text. And the next one is, adjust the font size if the typeface requires it. So the browser default is always the best place to start for text size. However, typefaces can vary significantly, even among ones suitable for continuous reading. And there are just some fonts that are really simply smaller. So often these are fonts which were designed from the start with heavily accented characters. So if there's a need to adjust the size, then go for it. Adjust the typeface when it requires it. Okay, next, let's talk about alignment, justification, and hyphenation. Now, we all know paragraphs can be set in three ways. Okay, that's justified, so that both sides have a straight edge. Okay, just like this one here, left straight edge and right straight edge. Okay, next is right or left aligned, so that they have an uneven edge. As you can see, they're not even, or they can be center aligned. So this one, center align. Okay. Remember, justify well or not at all. If in doubt, align left. I prefer to use this. I feel safe. But yeah, the next one to remember is remember that you should not justify the final line of a paragraph. Okay, what does that mean? The final line of a justified paragraph should always be aligned left. So if not, you will almost always end up with horrendous gaps between the words. Two important things that you need to remember And two important things that you should not forget, okay? Don't justify the final line of a paragraph. Remember that the final line of a justified paragraph should always be a line left. So if not, I mean, almost always end up with horrendous gaps between the words, just like this. Okay? And the second one is don't justify without hyphenating. Never set justify text without using hyphenation. Well, you can, however, hyphenate without justifying text. Using hyphenation with left align, right align, and center text can improve readability and overall appearance by greatly reducing the ruggedness of text. So, if you have time, try to look closer at Gutenberg's 600-year-old Bible designs, and you will see hyphenation is an intrinsic, really, part of the justification process, just as it was for the scribes he was emulating, because, hyphenation has been around as long as justification. So the next part is hierarchy and scale. What is this? So basically, it's is the structure of a website or a page. So the structure of a website is actually communicated through a typographic system. Now, if the system is good, then that makes documents scannable and easy to grasp. Now, the question is, how do we achieve this? There are two things to remember. First is establish the structure. So first, you'll need to understand the hierarchy and structure for yourself. So know what are the aspects of the content, how many levels of headings are required. Are there notes and captions, or is there any, small print? So you have to know that. And the next one is always size type using a scale. Now, the simplest expression of a type scale is a single size used throughout. All right. Always remember that consistency is very important. Consistency is the key in making meaning apparent. So to achieve that, use a scale and stick to it. So as you can see in the picture, we have this one here, no hierarchy, and the other one, there's hierarchy. So there's really a really big difference. Your eyes can understand which one is easy to read and you feel comfortable reading it. So that's why you have to consider and establish the structure and always size type using a scale. So remember hierarchy and scale. These are really important in your typographic design. So the next part is selecting typefaces for body text. Okay. So the job of the typeface for the majority of text in a website is to get out of the way and let the words speak. Okay. The first thing you have to consider is choose a robust faces. That is very important here. As you can see here, okay, here above, okay, that is the oxtail. Oxtail is a charming typeface, but it's a bad choice for body text. Its high contrast and quirky serif styles makes it really, feel distracting for running text. And the bottom, okay, that is the abrial text. It has a relatively high contrast and is full of personality, but it's slab serifs and consistent forms subdue any potential distraction. So still, I don't really consider using this. Okay. Then remember to choose active texture and color. So your reader may be, spending a great deal of time with the type. And if you have done your job well, they could lose track of that time altogether. So such a pleasurable reading experience is provided by a typeface with a smooth, active texture. So if your reader was instead a listener, settling in for a lengthy recitation, they wouldn't want to listen to a dull delivery. So neither would they want to endure a melodramatic rendition with a histrionics and overacted enunciation. So remember that. Okay, so the next one is choose faces in keeping with the text. Now, as a typographer, your job is to choose typefaces that will honor and elucidate the character of the text. So think about the topic of the text, and most importantly, get to grips with the nature of the writing. So think of words that describe the way the writer is coming across. So these are the feelings and the moods you need to impart with your design. Okay, and here's a note here. Remember, no neutral typefaces. No neutral typefaces. What does that mean? By the way, there's no such thing as a neutral typefaces. You cannot make a choice that calls for a neutral typeface. Okay, this would imply that the author or the writer is expressing no opinion. So it's just like when you're wearing clothes, you cannot wear neutral clothes, otherwise you are considered as really unadventurous and a really boring person. So it's the same thing with the typefaces. So, and the last one is trust your personal preference. So you have to trust your personal preference. So your choice of typeface should not be the design. It should serve the text and the typesetting and be decided only, okay, only when you know the nature of the job. And your final selection is a subjective choice made from a short list of worthy and appropriate contenders. So the next part is choosing typefaces for display. Now, display text is all about appeal. Okay, it's all about being attractive. So its purpose is to draw your reader into the content. Okay, so effective typographic appeal is expressive and strong, and it takes determination and skill to make a firm aesthetic decision. There are two things that you have to remember. The first one is don't be ordinary. Okay, don't be dogmatic. Okay, be appropriate, but allow your display type to have its own vernacular and effect. Okay, next is influence how people feel. So influence the way people feel through type. The way you set your type, okay, the size, spacing, color, and text will go a long way to forming a negative or positive experience. So the quality of your typesetting can have a notable impact on how your reader feels. But the most significant contributor will be your choice of typeface. There are two categories of typefaces, okay? The first one is the workhorses. So what is a workhorses? Workhorses typefaces can be bent to your will. They can be shaped in many different ways to perform a wide range of identities and contexts. So just like Helvetica, Futura, and Proxima Nova. I love Proxima Nova. And these are good examples, okay? So as you can see here, this one, this photo, okay, sorry. That is the Acumen. It's a typical workhorse superfamily with a variety of widths and height. So many workhorse typefaces are members of larger font families, so called superfamilies. So that's it. And next is the next category is the personalities. Okay, so personality is the second kind of typeface, is one of that does most of the work for you. So these are typefaces with much more inherent character and flavor. Okay, like finely tailored clothing, the detail in their design, and it adds interest to the innate functionality. So just like this one here, all right, that's this one above. It's Mars Sans, is a slightly eccentric sans serif that lends character straight away and provides editorial design with a sharp and distinctive taste. Here, the one in the middle, it's FS Clerkenwell, based on influences from an area of London, is a slab serif which provides a quirky contemporary twist. And here, the last one, that is the Brie. So it actually lends headlines character that would simply be lost should they be set in Helvetica. So these are the categories or kinds of typefaces. Now, both kinds of display face have their place. So for workhorses, for flexibility, for personalities, for individuality. So be aware of which one you're using and you can treat it accordingly. But for the sake of readers, it would be preferable to see more personality typefaces being used, and because it makes it makes it easier to set yourself apart from the rest. So better still, with a little respect and understanding, you can just let the typeface do most of the job. Now, my very last question is how to communicate my design with typography. Remember that it is your job to communicate your design in the most detailed and usable you can for the situation you find yourself in. So your job is to honor the text and put your reader at ease. So before I leave, let me just share this with you. Wherever there is type, there is typography, and where there is typography, it's the little things that count. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!